So this morning we're going to look at the passage or passages of the woman with the issue of blood. So I'm not quite sure where to tell you to turn, because there's a few places and I've sort of merged them all together. So you can choose where you want to follow it. You could go to Mark chapter 5, starting at 24. You could go to Luke chapter 8, verse 42. You could go to Matthew 9, starting with verse 18. Or if you're a descendant of the giant race and you've got lots of fingers, you could have a place everywhere and keep turning. It's up to you. As I was actually preparing a message in Peter, and I was spending a long time studying it. And sometimes when I'm preparing messages, I spend hours and hours looking at different passages. But then this one, on occasion, not often, but on occasion, it's as if God just downloads a message into my brain. And I think that was the case with this one. I wasn't even studying this, and just found myself just writing this one out. So it's hopefully inspire some of you and be of interest to you. So now, a lot of Bible critics will say you've got different versions of the story here, and so that means there's contradictions. Or how can you trust the Bible? You see it in Mark, and you see it in Luke, and you see it in Matthew, and there's different details. So that means the Bible is inaccurate. And you'll have heard critics say, for example, when Jesus was raised from the dead, and the women went to the empty tomb, and they'll say, well, how many women was it? It'll say, it says in Matthew there was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, so there was only two. It says in Mark there was Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome, so there was three. Luke, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary mother of James, and then they'll say, well, Mark says Salome and Luke says Joanna. So what is it? Well, these aren't contradictions, these are complements. In fact, if you had exactly the same passage in every chapter, it would look like it was falsified and it was corroborated, and actually it was a lie which people came up with. Because we've got the same story, but different people's perspectives of it, we know that the story was true, and we can trust it. And in fact, the police, for example, today prefer witness accounts like that, because what that does confirm is the event happened. With the women at the tomb, for example, we know for a fact that Mary Magdalene was there because they all agree, and then we know there was more than two women, and some mentioned some and some mentioned the others. So it just confirms to us we don't know the exact number, but we know the details. We know we have the overview of it. And with Mark, Luke and Matthew here, we've got different angles on this. For example, the Gospel of Mark, if you was to look at any passage in the Gospel of Mark, we see Jesus depicted as the suffering servant, and he has to act urgently. In Mark, it's a very short gospel. It's very punchy. There's an event and then another event and another event, and it talks about the urgency of Jesus' mission. We have Luke, which was, Luke obviously wasn't Jewish, he was a Gentile, and he looks at it from a different perspective. He sees Jesus' compassion, he sees Jesus' humility, that Jesus was a friend to the outsider. And Luke, the historian, would have felt like that because he wasn't a Jewish person. He was an outsider. And when we see these stories in the Gospel of Luke, we can see that humility of Jesus come through. In Matthew, we see that Jesus was the prophesied Messiah. He was the fulfillment of prophecy. And when Matthew takes that angle, and we can see through the genealogies that he had to come, and we can see that the Jews were looking for a Messiah, and Jesus was that person. And then in John, of course, we have a very different outlook. We've got Jesus as the divine. In the beginning was the Word became flesh. We've got Jesus as God in the Gospel of John. So we've got all these different angles. And I've tried to merge these passages together to to get the whole picture, if you like, to capture all of the details here. And in talking to you now, I haven't really decided where I'm going now with my Bible, and I've just got it on Matthew, just a random chapter. I'm not even in the right place myself. So I'm going to go to, I'll go to Matthew while I'm here. So Matthew, here we go.
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9, I lost my place there, didn't I? Okay. So it's not in chapter 9 actually, it's in one of the other versions, but it starts off, one of them, it might be Mark, it says there was a great crowd around Jesus. This was at the Galilean side of the sea, where Jesus' popularity began to grow. We could see that people were hearing about Jesus. Wherever he was going, crowds were following. And there's different reasons for that. Some people went to see Jesus because he was a fantastic teacher. And he was giving incredible messages. We've got the Sermon on the Mount, for example, as one of them. We've got the wisdom that Jesus was able to share, and the stories, the parables, and he would have been entertaining, and he would have been fun. Some people went because they wanted to get healed, and they wanted to see a miracle. Some people went because actually the children wanted to see Jesus, and Jesus says, let the little children come to me. So we know he must have been fun, he must have been entertaining. Children won't go to someone who's boring and really ultra serious, won't we? So we learn a little bit about Jesus' character there. But he was fun, he was interesting. And some people would follow him because they loved him. Some people would follow him because they hated him. And they wanted to catch him out in a lie or a trap or a trick. Of course, they wouldn't do that. Jesus would never lie, and he was too clever to fall for the tricks. So what we do know, there was a great crowd around him, and a great opportunity for souls to become to be saved, for people to hear new teaching, for miracles to happen. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And I was wondering, why 12 years? Is there something significant about that? Yeah, that was my first line of thought. Because in Mark chapter 5, I'm just going to turn back to that, we have, and it may be something of nothing, it may be coincidence, but we have what's called a Markian sandwich here. So this is what historians would call a Markian sandwich. And Mark used to write in a way where he would tell you about point A, and then he would interrupt it with a story, point B, and then after the story, he would go back to point A. And according to historians, they reckon there's 9 times where this happens. I haven't counted them, but apparently there are 9 Markian sandwiches in the Gospel of Mark. And when we look at this one, we see that Mark was writing about, he would be writing about Jairus' daughter. The man went for healing for her daughter. And in fact, in verse 22, then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be well and live." And he went with him. And then we have the great crowd followed, and it talks about the woman with the issue of blood. And then after the woman with the issue of blood, Jesus goes back to heal Jairus' daughter. So we have this example of sandwich. And that's interesting because the story normally has a connect or has some sort of reason for its inclusion to echo and to support and to enforce the first story. And in the first story, the girl is 12 years old. So I don't know if there's any connection, I don't know if there's a relevance or whether that's a coincidence, I don't know, but it was just where my line of thought went, so I'm just showing you how I approached this, what my line of thought was. And then I thought, what a long time for a woman to have this issue of blood for 12 years. What a shame, and I think we overlook how serious this would have been. And besides obviously the bleeding, if we turn to Leviticus 15, verse 25, it says, Leviticus 15:25, if a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her menstrual impurity, or if she has a discharge beyond the time of her impurity, all the days of the discharge she shall continue in uncleanness. As in the days of her impurity, she shall be unclean. And then it says every bed on which she lies, all the days of her discharge shall be to her as the bed for her of her impurity, and everything on which she sits shall be unclean, as is in the uncleanness of her menstrual impurity. And whoever touches these things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. This woman was unclean for 12 years. Do you know what that means? She was outcast. She couldn't go home to her family. People would have nothing to do with her. She had to separate herself from the whole society. If she was to go into the town where people were, she would have to shout, "I'm unclean! I'm unclean! Get away from me! I'm unclean!" So we have this woman who no one would ever touch. She wouldn't have hugged anyone for 12 years. No one would have wanted her in the same room for 12 years. They would have wanted if she was to touch this, that would have to be washed. 12 years of that. And I think this is the hardest thing. She would have had to be separate from everyone. So we've got this woman, we've got in this Markian sandwich, we've got Jairus' daughter who was dead. And we've got this woman who was unclean and was losing blood. And if we go back to Leviticus, this time chapter 17, we just get a little bit more information. Leviticus 17, 11 and 14. Verse 11 says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood." And 14 says, where is 14? 14 says, "For the life of every creature is its blood. Its blood is its life." So you could look at this as being, okay, 12 years, so nothing immediate happened. But you think about it, she was losing her life. She was bleeding away slowly, but she's losing her life. So we've got somebody dead. We've got a woman who has no life because she's outcast from everyone. She's rejected, but she's losing her physical life as well. And then we have, completing the triangle, we're going to see the third person in this story. We have Jesus. And what does he say in John 14:6? "I am the life." So it's only he who can bring Jairus' daughter to life. It's only he who can save the woman and heal her from her issue of blood. He is the life. It's Jesus who is the life. He gave his life for us. And both of these people were healed and both were restored by Jesus. But think of this as well. She's losing her blood, but it's through Jesus' blood that we are clean. And it's through Jesus' blood that we are washed. She would have to wash everything she touched because her blood was dirty. But we are washed by the clean blood of Jesus. It's his blood who saves, who washes our sins away. And then I was coming back to this meaning of number 12. Well, if you look into biblical numerology, and you can do this with something like Strong, who he will translate the Greek words for you. He's very reliable Bible lexicons, and you can look into the numbers. And the meaning of 12, we see God's power, we see authority, and we see government. And government, you've got like the tribes of Israel, haven't you? You've got the 12 disciples, so you can see the governing theme there. So what do we have? We've got Jesus, who has the power and authority over life, the woman, and over death, Jairus' daughter. And this is where these numbers are so important, because factually, she had it for 12 years. Factually, Jairus' daughter was 12. But why didn't Jesus intervene the year after, when they were 13? Or the year before, when they were 11? It was appointed for this time, because it shows in the story that Jesus is the one with authority, the one with power, and it's him who heals and saves us. The next point. is the woman had suffered under many physicians. And she says this in one of the accounts. I've merged them all together. I can't remember which account it is. But it says the woman had suffered under many physicians. In fact, she had spent all her living on many physicians. And I was reminded here of a woman when Jesus and his disciples are watching people give money into the offering. And they're watching people, and they're giving bags and bags of all this money. And then there's the woman who has just a couple of coins, and she puts it in. You know, the disciples' first reaction was, "Oh, that's not so much, is it?" But she actually gave more than anyone else because she gave everything that she had. And this woman now had spent everything she had on the doctor, everything that she had on the surgeon, in the hospital as it was of those days, and nobody could help her. She couldn't get better in her own strength by her own resources. And this reminds me of this has just come to me now actually. I've not, I can't remember where it is in the gospel, but Jesus is talking about if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. And if your arm causes you, does he say to cut it off? And I'm just thinking of this right now. And in the passage, the verse before that passage, it talks about lust being an issue. And it's talking about that even without our eye, even without our arm, we're still going to sin. It's not going to solve it. Plucking an eye out isn't going to get rid of the sin because it's a heart issue. And this woman spent everything she had, but she couldn't get better. And again, it comes back to Jesus now, because actually it doesn't matter how much we've got, it doesn't matter what we do in our own strength, it's only him who can save. It's only him who can heal the heart, which I think is the point of that. Put your eye out, put your arm out. It won't change anything, you need your heart changing. And it's only Jesus who can change your heart. And it's only Jesus who could heal her. And this emphasizes the power, it emphasizes the authority of Jesus. But also, it demonstrates her faith. Because if she'd spent everything, and she'd been an outcast after 12 years, but she hadn't given up, and she was still determined to be healed. And this brings us on to the next bit. It says, she had heard reports about Jesus and came up behind him. And we now have this, what I think, it looks to me like we have a paradox really, or an oxymoron, some sort of, not a contradiction, but some sort of opposites in operation here. Because she'd heard reports about Jesus and came, but she went behind him. She was in fear. So we've got faith and we've got fear at the same time in operation. And it's understandable. Because, well, she was unclean. She didn't want other people to see her because it was saying, "Get out, go away, you're unclean, off you go." And you might even have some who become violent to her, maybe. I don't know. Imagine they wouldn't want the family to have to be separated or anything. They might try to get her away or beat her with a stick or something to move her on. So she's got fear, but she's got the faith to approach. And she heard reports. And I was thinking, well, what reports might she have heard? So I sort of did a little bit of study to look at all the miracles which would have happened before this, with the issue of a woman of blood. And I hope I've got this right. Maybe I might have made an error somewhere, but I don't think so. I think it's right. We've got obviously the wedding at Cana, and Jesus turned water to wine. We've got Jesus heals a royal official's son. Jesus causes Peter to catch so many fish that his boat starts to sink. We've got a demon is cast out of a man on the Sabbath. Peter's mother-in-law is healed. A leper is healed in Capernaum. A paralytic man is healed again on the Sabbath. It's interesting, there's a lot of healing on the Sabbath, isn't there? On the Sabbath, a man's withered hand is healed. A blind, mute man with a demon is healed. The servant of a Roman centurion is healed. The son of a widow is raised from the dead. A man is healed of a 38-year infirmity. Jesus calms a storm. Actually, that one proves his divinity again, because in the Psalms it says the winds obey him. The winds obey God. So Jesus calms a storm. A legion of demons are cast out of 2 men and possess pigs. So there might have been more. There probably were more. Doesn't John say, if we were to record all the events, all the miraculous signs that Jesus did, there wouldn't be a book in the world which could contain them. So there must have been more, but these are the ones which we know about. So she's heard reports, and she's thought, this guy can heal me. And I believe she thought he was the Messiah. I believe she knew who Jesus was. But just coming back to this point about the Markian sandwich again, she's got faith and fear, and think about Jairus. He had faith and fear as well. He had probably the most fear a person could ever experience, because he's fearing his daughter is dead. But probably no fear as bad as that. But he's got faith that he went to Jesus. And when Jesus heals this woman, and we'll shortly see, he says, your faith has made you well. And is that because he's wanting to tell Jairus, through faith, I'm going to heal your daughter? But Jairus might be doubting. So he does this event now. Remember, it's got to reinforce the first story. The Markian sandwich enforces point A. So he's saying now to her, your faith has made you well. And in earshot, you've got Jairus, who's worrying about his daughter. He's basically saying to him, your faith. Where's your faith? Don't let your faith drop. She's going to be all right. So the woman believed Jesus was the Messiah. And I think we've got some evidence for this. First of all, if we go to Matthew, and you might already be in Matthew, but Matthew 11, 4-5, we have a situation where even John the Baptist is starting to doubt Jesus a little bit. And he sends messengers to Jesus, and he's saying, are you really the one? Come on, where's the action? Is it you we're waiting for? Come on. And Jesus answered the messengers, and he says, go and tell John. It is John, let's be clear, it's John the Baptist who's starting to doubt. Even John the Baptist. Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed. Now, did you know before Jesus a leper had never ever been cleansed? There was no healing of a leper until Jesus. And the point when he tells the lepers, go to the priest for the sacrifice and the ceremonial cleansing, the priest wouldn't have known what to do. They'd be like, we need the textbook. What do we do now? We can't remember. It's never happened before. The point was to say, Messiah is here. That was why he told the lepers to go back. Messiah is here. And so the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me. So we've just seen the reports of Jesus' miracles. We've just seen a leper healed. But she would have known that a blind and mute person was healed. So she's trusting that Jesus is the Messiah. But we can go even deeper than that. And this is what really excites me about the Bible. Let's turn to Malachi chapter 4. We don't often go to Malachi in a Bible study. So let's give Malachi a bit of attention. And it's important to learn these books. J. John tells a little story, like a joke, and I think it's quite funny. He says there's going to be a lot of awkward people in heaven, because we're going to get people like Malachi and Amos come up to us and go, did you like my book? And we're going, I don't know what it was about. So there's going to be a lot of awkward moments, isn't there? So it's important to remember these ones. And Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, it says, but for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall. Okay, why on earth have I gone to that? Well, let's go to Numbers now. Numbers chapter 15, verse 38. Numbers 15, verse 38. And it says, "Speak to the people of Israel, and tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner." Okay. Why have we gone to that? Well, the Hebrew word for wings in Malachi is kanaf. The tassels are a kanaf. There's healing in the kanaf. There's healing in the corners of the garments of the priest. And what does the woman say? If only I can touch his garment. She doesn't say, if only I can touch him. She goes, if only I can touch his garment. So she's believed Malachi, where it says there's healing in his garment. There's healing in his kanaf. There's healing in the corners, the hem, the corners of his garment. And she's remembered in Numbers, and the priests are going to have these garments on, these tassels, these corners, and she's like, I just need to touch the corner of his garment and I will be healed. And that's how we know she believed he was the Messiah. What a fantastic verse. Nobody said what Jesus said. Nobody did what Jesus did. Nobody knew what Jesus knew. This person was the Messiah, and she believed it. And she just thought, I just need to touch his garment. So we've got this incredible picture, this tremendous faith. Now, what is faith? People talk about faith being a blind faith, don't they? Oh, faith is what you say when you don't have the answers to the questions. Just have faith. But that's not what Hebrews says. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. It's the conviction of things unseen. Faith is where the evidence leads you. And this woman knew her scriptures, that the Messiah is going to have healings in his wings or healing in his garments. She'd seen the reports that the blind had received the sight, the lepers had walked, people had been raised from the dead, and that led to her having the faith, based on that evidence, to go out and to touch the corner of Jesus' garment. And the bleeding stopped immediately. Jesus felt his power leave him. She trembled. But he called her daughter. He didn't tell her off. He didn't shout at her. And just think of this. He said, your faith has saved you. But just pause on that word daughter. She's gone 12 years where nobody has called her daughter. Where nobody has called her friend. Where nobody has wanted to look at her or be near her. She's been an outcast. And the first thing Jesus says to her is, daughter. He loved her. He reassured her. He welcomed her. And what should have happened is, because she touched Jesus, he should now be unclean. Remember what we was reading before in Leviticus. He should need to go and wash his clothes. He should need to go and separate himself now. He's unclean in Jewish culture. But nothing's making Jesus unclean. It's his blood which washes us. And on the cross, we have this picture where actually it's Jesus who cleans us, doesn't he? He saves us. I'm just remembering some notes for a separate study I did, and I think I've got something in this, if I can find it. So on the cross, and we see it's a hyssop branch which is offered up on the cross to Jesus when they put the sponge with the drink on it. They use a hyssop branch, and if we know what hyssop, it says in Psalm 51:7 that hyssop has some cleansing attributes. It says clean with hyssop. We read in Leviticus 14 that hyssop is used as one of the cleaning utensils, one of the cleaning instruments for cleaning leprosy. we see that actually they used hyssop to put the blood on the lintels of on the doorposts at the Exodus. So we see this picture where Jesus cannot become unclean because he is the one with the cleaning power, the power for salvation, the power for purification to forgive people. He recognized her faith, which had healed her. Now in the Greek, the word it uses for faith is sozo or or exozo, however you say it. That's the Greek word for faith, and it's got two meanings for it. It means heal and save. Heal and save. So she was physically healed, and if we base on what we know about her, that she believed Jesus was the Messiah, she was probably spiritually healed as well. And I believe that she went on to follow Jesus for the rest of her life. I don't know that. The scripture doesn't tell us that. It doesn't tell us that she was a faithful servant. This is my opinion. But I believe after that encounter with Jesus, I think her faith would have been so strong, and that healing, I think she would have remembered every day of her life when she had an interaction with someone. She would have remembered, Jesus healed me. And I think she would have lived her life following Jesus. She might have followed him everywhere after that, I don't know. But I believe as well as being physically healed, she was spiritually healed. And I think we'll meet her one day in heaven and be able to ask her about it. So the lessons here, we've got at least 3, there's probably a lot more lessons, but one, step out in faith. Well, how do we have the faith? First of all, we need to study the Word. She studied the Word. She knew the verse in Malachi. She knew the passages in Numbers. She studied the Word and she stepped out in faith. And then we have to trust in Jesus as well, because we can't trust in anyone else. No one else can heal us. No one else can save us. Only Jesus. What did he say in John 14:6? I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. So let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for this incredible story about the woman with the issue of blood and the faith that she had. She had fear, yes, of course, but her faith overcame it. And you overcame her problems, Lord. You overcame the bleeding. You overcame all of the issues she had, Lord. And you saved her, Lord, and you healed her. And we thank you. Help each one of us, Lord, to study your word, to know your word, to learn your word, to trust in you. And just like this woman, Lord, even when we're scared, even when we're fearful, to step out in faith and to follow you, Lord, wherever you lead us. Amen.